Welcome. I'm Riley Karsh.
I'm Tova Kopan.
We are thrilled to bring you the We Go Boldly podcast.
Let's talk big burning questions, life changes, and maybe a bit of personal business.
Let's be bold and brave together. Are you ready?
I am. Here comes the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Go Boldly, the podcast. We are always so excited to be here with you guys. This is, we were just talking about it, and this is like one of our favorite things to do on the planet is to do this podcast. So thank you for listening and for joining us and for sticking with us all this time. If you've been around from the beginning, we appreciate you. So I just wanted to put that out there before we dive into our almost last session for season 9 episode, whatever we want to call it. So before we get into all that, of course, obviously I am Riley. I am here with my magical co-host Tova, and I want to know, Tova, how are you feeling today?
How am I feeling? Not how am I doing?
I know. I am throwing a wrench in the works.
How am I feeling? I am feeling interesting. Chocolatey.
Is that the chocolate that was sitting around for so long, or just
on the floor? Did I just have a little bite of chocolate from the floor? Yes, I did just have some floor chocolate. Yes.
Floor chocolate is fantastic.
If we're going to tell the story, so we have the advent calendars. You may get yours from Trader Joe's. We get ours from the Elf on the Shelf every year.
Naturally.
And this year there's been some issues with them. All the chocolate has fallen to the bottom. I do not think that is the advent calendar's fault. I think it's my children's fault. And so for the last day, there has been a piece of chocolate sitting on the floor, and I've been walking by it wondering who is the first person is going to be that picks it up. And then it hit me moments ago that I am the only one who's been in the home for the last day because the children are with their father. And so I am the only one that has been walking past the floor chocolate. Now, I felt comfortable picking it up because of that. We don't wear shoes in the house for the most part, except with guests. And so whatever, I picked up and I did eat the floor chocolate.
I like it. Honestly, even if you wore shoes in the house and you had to like wipe it off a little bit, I wouldn't be all that upset about it.
I mean, there was no dirt. There was no dirt. So
the things we eat every day are well, anyway, that's a different show.
It's also the holiday season, and so I feel like chocolate is sort of also, in addition to the holiday season, it is my time of the month. So chocolate is my current state.
Okay. It's all coming full circle now. I get it.
Yeah.
I see it.
Yeah. So that's how am I feeling? I'm feeling chocolatey.
That's fantastic. I am feeling hopeful, and it's a good feeling.
That was going to be my other word.
Oh, really?
It was between hopeful and chocolatey.
Yeah, I don't feel chocolatey. If we're talking food, I'm always salty. I want potato chips every time. But
I would eat those too.
I mean, I'm not saying I will pass up the chocolate. Anyway, back on track. I am feeling hopeful. It's bizarre to me that I'm feeling hopeful because this time of year it tends to like not be the most hopeful for me. So I'm kind of excited about that. I am I'm like hopeful about my hopefulness. Is that a thing? I think it is. And it's a good way to feel. It's like we like to ask our guests how they want to feel in 10 years instead of like, what do they want to be doing? And so when I started thinking about how I was feeling, and this does relate to what we're going to talk about today. When I started to think about it, I was like, okay, I want to, a lot of people say they want to feel peaceful, they want to feel content, they want to feel happy, whatever, all those things, which of course I also want all of those things, but I like the idea of feeling both hopeful and curious throughout my life. That like
interesting that you say the word curious as someone who's never watched Ted Lasso yet.
I'm saving it for the right moment. Don't you ever just savor something? I'm just waiting for the moment when
I
it's
do.
right for me.
And you know what? I actually really appreciate that because you can only watch it the first time one time,
Right.
but
Right. And I
that
need to be in the right space mentally so I don't hate it and then we can't be friends anymore. Like that's not an option. So I will get to it. I will do it. But today on the show, you guys, we'll get focused here, maybe. Today we are talking about, not ironically, balance versus harmony. And how does that relate to our overarching theme for the season of how is your heart? And for me, it's a huge connection. Tova, I can see you have thoughts on,
I
on
do.
this.
I have so many thoughts about this, but before we get to thoughts about this,
Oh, okay.
I want to go back to, and I want to, I have a theory about your hopefulness.
Please.
And it goes back to our conversation a couple weeks, months, no concept of time.
Time's
Um,
irrelevant.
yep, well, it's a construct of seasons of life,
Mm,
that show episode.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
Because I think it was really last year that we
Yeah.
leaned into
Yeah.
the idea that January was our hibernation season.
Yes.
And so I think that um, knowing that is coming allows me to lean into this time of season. And I know you're not having a blowout December just yet of joy. And it's more of a doctor's visit kind of December for you.
Oh, sure is.
But
Super fun.
but and I do love this time of year, but knowing that like really embracing, I think, that I in years past, there's always been like a, oh yeah, we set, not that we set New Year's resolutions, but like, oh yeah, we're gonna dive into the new year. And then it always surprises me that it takes until February to really get going.
Right.
And so knowing that like I don't even try, like January is really my month of hibernation. And I love to like is it the hygie? Is that the how you
Yeah,
say
yeah,
that word?
yeah,
Like the
yeah. I think
hygie of it
so.
all.
I'm gonna
I have
go with
like
it.
4 or 5 books, but they're written books, so I don't actually know how to say the words.
Mm,
Um, but like knowing that that is kind of my buffer between like my new year is February 1st.
yes.
And that I have this month buffer really brings me great joy. Um, and so
Yeah.
that is kind of I wonder if that is a little bit of your hopefulness that because I think last year you and I both sort of embraced that was coming.
Right. I mean, it definitely comes into play, right? Understanding your mental health, your mental state, the state of your heart, right? Not to
Yeah.
like harp on that, but understanding that and being okay with it, I think is an act of hopefulness, right? Like it
Yeah.
is a a decision to be hopeful about where you are right now and where you're going in the future. And I find that aspect of aging for me anyway, I don't
Mm.
think I could have had this depth of conversation at a younger age. I don't think I had this kind of awareness, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so all of that combined like makes me feel more hopeful about where I am and then where I'm going and what's coming. Even like I there's bad stuff coming because life is life and I'm still feeling okay with that, which I think is a really important place to be.
Well, it's interesting you say that, and I there is a segue now to our actual topic of
Mm-hmm.
conversation. I promise. I just finished a book yesterday, and I'm not going to say the book because I don't want to ruin the ending because I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to share a quote that I wrote down. But and it's not going to ruin the ending. I know you know what book I finished, but the quote was, "I was young, and it was years before I could see the merits of kindness, and I
Mm.
would love to have a conversation about." I was young and it was years before I could see the merits of blank, right? Like,
Everything.
right, like what was the blank? And what are the things that like somebody who's 30 years older than us that is listening and going like they're missing the forest for the trees right
Right,
now. They
right,
have no idea. Um, but our topic today is balance versus harmony. And I think that there's a conversation both on a like I was young and it was years before I could see the merits of harmony versus balance.
right,
There's, our culture was young and it was years before we as a culture could see the merits of harmony versus balance.
yeah, if we
And
have, I don't
if we
know.
have, right. And it's interesting because so I did the research for this one, and there is a lot of, so there's a lot of writing out there about work-life balance and then work-life harmony. And I immediately take offense to all of it because I don't think that anything should be separated as work life,
Right,
as if something that you do for at minimum 8 hours a day um, is not part of your life.
right.
And also, like, if you are a quote, stay at home parent, which is like the most ridiculous description of a parent that stays at home who doesn't stay at home, but whatever.
Yeah,
Um, there's not work because you're not getting paid for it or something. Like that there isn't another balancing act or harmony that needs to be achieved in your life. Like, but that work isn't part of your life, that there's some sort of like outside life and inside work life. So
right.
immediately I take offense to this and all the ratings that had to do with it. And then there was some, but like setting that aside, because
Hmm.
if I took offense to it at all, then I could not have done the research.
Right.
Um, which is actually what happened initially. um, and then um, and then there was a lot of different takes, right? So some of the writing, some of the articles was about balance and harmony and really used it interchangeably, right?
Right.
And it was like, no, 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 no. And then other articles, and I just discounted those just so we're there. Like we're not using it interchangeably. And I didn't even use those articles. I was like,
Yep.
oh nope, you're not what I want to talk about. So we're not going to talk about balance and harmony as if they are the same thing. So they're not included in this conversation because they're
Right.
not the same thing. Um, and then there were articles that were like balance and harmony are two separate things. They're both valuable and achievable. And it was like, okay, well,
Hmm.
we include research that we don't like,
Right.
so we're going to include you. And then there were some lesser so, but some articles that were more, I think, in line with the way I think, which is balance is not the goal and harmony more is, but they still give a lot more credence to balance. And um, you know, we've talked about this, but I want to talk about it again, just so you know where this episode came from, which is we were at the conference in May, the Mom 2.0 conference, and I don't remember because I just feel like you started talking about it, but I feel like somebody else talked about it first, but maybe it was just from your brain, and I don't
No, so
know.
it was like a combination of a conversation I had during or right after a panel I sat in and listened to, and then it was something I think that was mentioned, on a couple panels of like seeking harmony instead of focusing on balance. And it sort of all came together. But out of that, you and I have spent the last almost year talking about
Yep.
this concept and talking about why balance feels so uncomfortable and icky and unachievable, unattainable, all those like sort of negative words, and why harmony is like, oh, that sounds like something I want.
Yeah, and as soon as you maybe used the metaphor or analogy. I'm too far away from my SATs to remember which is which. Um, of thinking of someone as a tightrope walker.
Hmm.
Um, I can no longer use the word balance to describe something that I want to achieve in my life.
Yeah,
Like,
I always see it either as the tightrope walker or, we're lawyers technically. And so I see the scales of justice trying to balance and
yeah.
like they never do. They never do. It's one of the reasons I hated being a lawyer. There is no balance in the scales of justice.
Well,
And it's
yeah.
very uncomfortable to me.
Well, or I just remember the first judge that I interned for. So I was still in law school, and it was before I clerked and everything. And it was after my first year of law school. And I was interning for a family law judge who hated being a family law judge. But oftentimes that's the first thing you have to do when you become a
Mm-hmm.
judge is family
Mm-hmm.
law. And he said that essentially his goal was for everybody to leave unhappy. And if everybody, because it was so impossible for everybody to be happy,
Yeah.
but if everybody left unhappy, at least he knew it was fair.
Well, and but
Like,
that's exactly right. And that's how I think of balance, right? Like if you're trying to achieve quote work-life balance, right? Somebody is always disappointed, whether it's your employer, your kids, your spouse, your friends, your family. Somebody's disappointed because you cannot possibly do all the things at once and do them well, right? Like you can't evenly do work and parent and partner and exercise and like self-care. You can't evenly do all those because there's
right,
24 hours in a day.
right. And by the way, we don't all have the same 24
Right.
hours.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
we don't have the same 24 hours as Beyonce. We don't have you you do not have the same 24 hours as somebody who has, and I don't know that they have a live-in housekeeper, but they certainly have assistants. And their assistants have assistants. And we don't have the same 24 hours as someone who has a private plane. Like, we just don't.
We also don't have the same 24 hours as someone who has to work three minimum wage jobs to pay rent, right?
A
Like
hundred
everyone
percent. Everyone has a
has
different 24 hours.
exactly. And so what I find so frustrating, and then I want to like move back because we kind of started in the middle of the conversation.
Yep.
But what I find so frustrating is well, there's two things. One, there's like a moral judgment being placed on people for not achieving balance, which is impossible to achieve. And two, it impacts people's self-worth
Yep.
dramatically. Like, and I know we say all the time your self-worth comes from within and you exist and you have worth and therefore like yay. But people take these things to heart. Like if you're like looking at the outside world and going, how is that mom of four doing it all? I don't understand. And I'm like, falling apart at the seams. Now, there's a million reasons that they might seem like they're doing everything. But like you just said, Tova, not everybody has the same 24 hours. Not everybody has the same resources. Not everyone has the same mental health, mental capacity. Like
Well,
there are so many variations and nuances.
even somebody working three minimum wage jobs, which by the way, it is atrocious in our country that somebody
Ugh.
has to work three minimum wage,
Yeah,
wage jobs.
I like
Um,
irate.
but even they who if they have three or four or five kids and they're working three minimum wage jobs, they don't have the same 24 hours. One of them might have the support of a sister or a mother
Right.
or a friend or whomever. And I want to go back to something, and we will get back. We're going to go back to the definitions. In fact, what we'll do is we'll take a break so that we remember to take a break because
Yes.
clearly this is going to be like a race.
Yes.
Because we just could talk about this a lot.
We have
Um,
feelings about this.
we do. We have strong feelings about this. In fact, we would love to do workshops on this. So if you want us to come and talk to your workshop about it,
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. To your group, we can do
your
it.
group, because this is something I think that we need to talk a lot more about. But to something you said about you can't be even, well, guess what? When you are on a tightrope, you have to be even. I mean, I've never actually walked on a tightrope because it seems terrifying.
Yeah,
But
but you've probably done a balance beam, right?
I've
It's
done a
like
balance beam
it's the same
and
thing.
you have to be even. I've also carried plates on my arms as a server.
Right.
You have to be balanced. Have you ever like been carrying bags in where you're loaded up on both sides and someone says, "Let me help." And you say, "No, no." Because if you take one bag, it's all going to fall down,
Right.
right? So in order to be balanced, it has to be even on both sides, but in real life, it can't be even. So you literally cannot obtain the balance that you need to obtain ever. And I don't normally include outlines that make me rage, like things in outlines that make me ragey. That's more your thing.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a line right at the top that it says, and I just took it right out of an article. Finding work-life balance and harmony not only reduces stress,
Oh,
it prevents burnout and ensures that people have time for friends and family.
isn't that nice?
Everything about that makes me want to throw tomatoes at my computer. Um, or the
Interesting
person who
choice.
wrote
I
it, but
like
that
it. I
seems
like
too
it.
violent.
Right.
But like, what? What? How does attempting to achieve work-life balance reduce stress and prevent burnout? Like, no,
It's like one of
no.
the number one causes of burnout and
Right.
stress
Right. Because it's like,
because you're
it's
trying to do
like,
it all.
it's like when a mom goes to Santa Claus and says, I would like a unicorn. And Santa's like, unicorns are mythical creatures. Pick something realistic. And she was like, I would like to have a clean house and to sleep 12 hours. And Santa's like, what color unicorn would you like?
Right.
It's like, what? No, you can't achieve that. That's not possible. So listen,
Yeah.
we're going to take a break and then we're going to go back and do some definitions because I think it's really important as we prattle on here about balance and harmony and how they're not the same things and they're not achievable. Although we're going to talk about how harmony is achievable,
Yeah.
or at least shooting for it can actually help your stress level and your burnout and all that good
Right.
stuff.
Right.
Because it is something that can bring peace, I think, and that hopefulness that we want to, and chocolate perhaps into your life. So let's take a quick break and we will be right back. Tova here. I'll admit, when I think of a coach, I immediately think knee-high socks, whistles, and clipboards. Is it because I love Ted Lasso?
Maybe. I mean, I think it's a good look for you if I'm being honest.
Thanks, I think. Anyway, that's not the kind of coaching we want to talk to you all about.
True. We are talking about life and transition coaching, though I do still love a clipboard and a tube sock.
Both Riley and I are lucky to have worked with incredible coaches throughout our lives.
Before that, though, we struggled with where to start, believing in what coaching could really do for us, and, of course, putting ourselves first.
Taking the leap and working with our coaches made all the difference. They gave us direction and support when we needed it most.
Now, we are fortunate enough to be coaches ourselves, and we're excited to pay it forward.
We can help you figure out where to start, create a roadmap, keep you accountable, and get to living your limitless life.
Sounds pretty great. So if you want to figure out your next steps, check out our services at goboldlyinitiative.com/services.
We can't wait to talk to you. Now, back to the show. All right, welcome back, everybody. So we're going to start with definitions. So this concept of balance is the older concept. It is, I was reading articles, one was from Forbes, right? It's this whole business concept. It is, I imagine it was a concept that was first used in business when there was one person in a family that was working and they got to go to work and go home and there was like a scotch and a cigar waiting for them or something. That's what happens in my head. And they're like slippers. In its simplest form, balance refers to the state of equilibrium or stability achieved when opposing forces or elements are evenly distributed or proportioned. It is the art of maintaining equilibrium amidst well, that's a hard word, contrasting aspects, ensuring that no single element overpowers or dominates the others.
This is so easy.
It's so easy. It's simple, simple, simple. At its core, balance is about finding a middle ground, a point where opposing forces or elements coexist in a harmonious manner. It is a delicate dance between aspects, ensuring that none overpower the others while maintaining a sense of stability and proportion. And this is why babies and toddlers ruin everything.
Right.
Because it's impossible. And not just babies and toddlers, a car with a flat tire.
Right.
Like life. Life cannot coexist with balance. Nature is good with balance because,
But it's not really balance. It's harmony, right?
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
still goes to that same concept of it's not equal all the time, right? Like there's not equal amounts of everything in the world. It's balanced. I mean, it's not balanced, it's harmonized. And so when we talk about harmony, we're talking about um finding ways to, and I'll let you do the actual definition, but we're
Yeah.
talking about finding ways to live your life so that the things in your life resonate in a more equal way. And that doesn't mean the same amount, right? It means they give you the same amount of pleasure, or you have them working together in a way that feels and sounds and exists in a positive way.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess when I was thinking about nature, I was thinking about like, when they took out the wolves, right? It caused all sorts of problems.
Right.
It's like as much as we don't like mosquitoes, although I think they actually I think we can get rid of them. I don't know. There's certain bugs you can get rid of, and it's like, whatever. But like, if we took out certain bugs, it would be a really big problem. And just like
Yeah.
when you bring in invasive species, like bamboo, for example,
Oh,
um,
yes.
Riley has a lot of bamboo at her
Thanks,
house.
prior house owner.
Um, it can be a really big problem because it throws off the natural balance, although not, like you said, evenly proportioned, but harmony of nature. So let's talk about what a definition of harmony is. And I'm going to interrupt myself a couple times, but work-life harmony involves incorporating work into the rest of life in a way that promotes happiness both at home and in the office. And one thing I like about that right from the start is it is not separating work and life. It is incorporating work into your life, which, oh, by the way, the thing that you spend most of your time at, doing most of the time when you're not sleeping, should be counted as part of your life.
Right.
News alert. Okay. Harmony, on the other hand, so on the other hand from balance, encompasses a broader and more profound concept. It refers to the state of being in agreement, synergy, or unity, where various elements or entities work together in a seamless, that does seem a little stressful, and synchronized manner. Harmony is
Aspirational,
the
I think.
yeah, aspirational. Harmony is the embodiment of coherence, cohesion, and compatibility. Harmony can be observed in multiple domains, ranging from music and art to relationships and nature. In music, it's the pleasing combination of different notes, chords, and melodies that create a sense of unity and balance. In art, harmony is achieved when colors, shapes, and textures blend harmoniously, evoking a sense of visual satisfaction and wholeness. And what I love about this idea of harmony is that it is different for everyone. So I've never, once again, walked across a tightrope, but I have walked, as you said, across a balance beam. And to do it right, like to do it well, as I did gymnastics for a hot minute, there's like one way to do it, right? To really do it well and do that little like foot dip thing and like that you're
Yep.
supposed to do. But you can paint, you can color a picture any way you want. Music can have the strings be loud sometimes and the trumpets be loud and some things be soft, and even there's beauty in discordant chords and notes, and beauty can be found in all sorts of harmonies
Right.
and all sorts of ways. And there's really a limitless, which is great because this is all about living a limitless life, way to find harmony in art and music.
Right.
And there's so many more options to find harmony in the world than there is to find balance. And to me,
Yeah.
it just takes the pressure off.
Well, and what I think it does, which is what you were saying, but just to sort of say it in a different way, is it allows each person to be unique and successful, right? Like you don't
Yeah.
have to homogenize yourself into that one way of being balanced and staying on the balance beam, whatever that is for you, and trying to make that work. You can write your own music, you can draw your own picture, you can create your own sense of harmony, and that in and of itself allows you a great deal of freedom, right? That is, like you said, where this whole concept of limitless living can come from, is you yourself understanding the unique not to like kill the metaphor, but the unique notes of your life. Like, what are the colors in your life? And you can paint the picture however you want on any given day. Like, one day it's one color, and the next day it's another color. And
Yeah.
that still can be harmonic. It can still create harmony in your life, and you can feel settled and grounded and eased.
And
I was reading something and they keep using this concept of being, or maybe it was a meditation I did. I don't know. But everyone knows I have a terrible short-term memory. But the concept is to seek ease and to feel
mm,
ease and to allow yourself and your body, your spirit, your soul, your mind, all those things to be at ease. And that's what harmony can do for us.
yeah, and I think, like you said, to recognize that it looks different for everyone.
Yeah.
So it is okay for some people to find harmony by having a nanny and, by not attending every single activity at their kid's school.
Sign me up. Well, yeah, and
Like it doesn't, I think being the perfect whatever,
mm,
first of all, perfection is not attainable and
it's a myth.
should not be the goal and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But like being the perfect whatever um doesn't have to look the same for everyone. Parenthood doesn't have to look the same for everyone. Being the ideal um employee doesn't have to look the same for everyone. I think this is something that hopefully is a takeaway from the pandemic that we realized, I work with a lot of lawyers, and now a lot of lawyers realized that they really like working in the office, right? Like they really like that boundary
Sure.
of this is work, this is home. I want to, because being a lawyer can be very stressful and they want to leave work at work.
Yeah.
To me, commutes are stressful.
Hmm.
Being in the office is stressful. Oddly enough, as much as I love small talk in a selling environment, um, small talk at work when I'm just in an office is stressful. Like all of that work, getting dressed just to get dressed when I could do the work at home and I'm wasting my time is stressful. Like
Yeah.
all of that is stressful. But other people realized that they were significantly more productive at home. And so learning that we can be different types of employees and be better in different ways, I think is learning about harmony versus balance.
Yeah. And I think I said this before, but I just, in case I didn't make it clear, I want to reiterate that whatever is your harmony, and that's not really how you say it, but I can't think of the right words. Whatever it is today, it might not be the same tomorrow. And that's
Right.
okay. Like, and it might
Right.
not be the same next week. And that's the point, is that it is flexible and allows you to have a bad day where you don't work out, right? Or like, not,
Yeah.
I shouldn't call that a bad day. Just have a day where you're like, I don't want to work out
It's not going
today,
to happen today.
right? And that
Yeah.
you can still like if you were talking about it as if it was balance, you would fall off the balance beam if you didn't exercise in a
Yep.
given day, right? If that's part of your life or whatever. Um, but if we're talking about harmony, if I don't exercise tomorrow, it's okay. Like I'm like that, might still be creating harmony in my day. In fact, I might be making my day more harmonious because I'm like listening to my body and listening to my heart and all those things. I think it's really important to recognize that life changes, we change, and being adaptable is more important than meeting somebody else's definition of how you create work-life balance.
This might be another word for grace, right? Like giving yourself space for harmony,
Yeah.
giving yourself space to have harmony in your life.
Yep.
Um, I want to talk a little bit about a different way to look at work-life balance
Hmm.
because I did read an article that talked about how to find work-life balance, and it did it in a way that didn't make me cringe. And because listen, this concept of work-life balance is not going to go away,
No.
despite the fact that I want to kick it in the shins every time I hear it. And listen, I was at a conference in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Women's Conference, and someone was talking about it, and I was like, no, I don't try to achieve work-life balance. I try to get harmony. And I talked about the tightrope, and she was like, oh my God, you're right. Like I am preaching about the harmony versus balance. So I am okay. One of my goals, like let's just put it into the universe. I want to be talking to Savannah and Jenna and Hoda. I don't know how you ever talk to all three of them at the same time.
Right? But it would be amazing.
It would be amazing. I think we'll be outside, maybe. That's the only way you get to talk to all three of them at the same time. But
Yeah, we
like
can be on the plaza. It's
you and
fine.
I are going to be on the plaza and we're going to talk to all three of them. Then we're going to go talk to Oprah in her garden. And we are going to talk to, and then we're going to talk to Brene. We're going to talk to everyone about balance and harmony. And so we are going to change this concept of work-life balance. But until we do, and until we're stuck talking about and hearing about work-life balance, I'm going to change the way I think about work-life balance. And I really liked this article. And so I want to change the way you all think about work-life balance until we can replace it with harmony and how
Right.
work can be integrated into life because it is part of our lives. So the article talked about how there is a way to healthily achieve, both for workers, students, whomever, work-life balance. And I think it's something that I really tried to get for my kids during the pandemic, and I've
Yeah.
become less good at as time went on. But um, one was to create a dedicated workspace. So this is not this is truly finding balance in like the truest sense of the word, like okay, like this is where we live and this is where we eat and this is where we work, like not a mythical unicorn work-life balance. And
Right.
so like right, like this is like create a dedicated workspace, right? So if that means space at your kitchen table, right? And for me, our dining room table is our puzzle table, our game table, our, work table, but I have a hutch that's my desk. It just doesn't look like a desk. And I have like a whiteboard that I can pull out. And so I can kind of transition my dining room table to a workspace. Like
Yeah.
when the puzzle thing is out, it's the puzzle table. And when the work, so I can make a mental shift. Um, but it's a way to mentally separate work time from personal time. I know one of my big goals this year that I did not achieve, but will be next year. It's going to be one of the things that I share with the Year of You crew is to have a routine at the end of the day to transition from work day to home day, home
Yeah.
time. I'm getting better at like cutting off the work day. And now I want there to be a more peaceful transition, like
Yep.
if it's a minute of deep breathing or something. But so like having a dedicated space, right? So that's one of the things.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in for a second and say
Yeah.
you can apply this to anything, right? It doesn't have to be work. It could be
Right.
a dedicated space. Like I'm creating a meditation space in within the confines of my office that I'm very fortunate to have. Um, or maybe you live in I used to live in Brooklyn in like a tiny little apartment and there was no space for anything. And so you have to find ways to convert spaces, right? And so you can do that as well for whatever is going on in your life. I mean, maybe you love doing makeup tutorials and that like brings you a great deal of joy and peace and all those things. And so create a dedicated space where you can do that and have that as a part of your, routine, whether it's every day or once a week or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can be very much like, okay, when the ring light is out, makeup to like I will never
Right.
be makeup Tova, but like when the
Yeah.
ring light is out, makeup tutorial Tova is out. Like it
Right. I
doesn't
was
have to
thinking of my
be,
kid. Like I feel
yeah,
like
yeah.
she would be very happy with like a little space where she could do that
I can
on.
only imagine her with a ring light.
Oh goodness.
It's gonna be on like Donkey Kong.
It's gonna
Um,
definitely be on.
and then also like establishing a routine. And we've talked about this so much. I just talked about it 3 minutes ago with the
Right.
like ending the day. But whether it's taking regular breaks, so it's integrating work and life, like
Yeah.
literally integrating the two because you are in fact living when you're working. Your life does not stop
What?
when you're working.
That's crazy.
What? So it could be walking during lunch. And I think that's where the balance can happen is recognizing that like let's say you actually have a job where you go in at 9 and you leave at 5. And I did once have one of these jobs. I went in at 8:30 and I left at 5:30. It was a doc review job. It was actually magical. It was because I got laid off, and that was really sad. But until I got another lawyer job, it was a lawyer job, but it was doc review. And
Right.
it was this mythical job. I had two 15-minute breaks, and then I had like a half hour, an hour lunch. I took nothing home with me. Everything was very rigid. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Um, it helped that I was reading somebody's like very saucy emails. That's what I was reviewing. And I read it over like a 10-year period. And it
Right,
was
right, right.
before people knew not to put like really personal information in their
Yeah,
work
yeah, yeah.
emails.
Oh goodness.
Um, and so it was a delightful 2 or 3 months. But you know, during those 15 minutes, I would walk around the town. I would go for walks. I would stop at Williams Sonoma and get a little free sample. And and so there was ways like to not just think of it as like work and life. Like work and life were integrated, right? And maybe it's listening to podcasts during your day, or maybe it's listening to a book on your commute, or listening to music, or going in and stopping and getting your favorite coffee, or like whatever it is, but recognizing that when you're at work, you are living amazing, shocking, and that you can enhance your day and your experience that
Yeah.
makes it feel like when you leave, it's not like sucked your soul.
Right. And I just want to give a big shout out for using reminders to help you do these things, right?
Hmm.
Like put it in your calendar, use the reminders app, whatever apps or whatever you use. Make sure you set reminders so that you actually do these things because, like anyone, we all get caught up in our day and we get like sometimes I realize I've been sitting at my desk for hours. And now I have it, my watch tells me like, hey, you need to stand up. You've been sitting there for a long time. And these things are really, really helpful to move us along, the pathway that you're talking about, Tova.
Yeah, and I think reminders and also which by the way, I used to be like drink water, eat lunch.
Yep.
Um, but also uh, telling other people what you need, whether it's your managers, your instructors, both of those things can be really, really hard. So maybe you start with your family members or your roommates or like the people that you live with, which could be harder. Pick whichever's easier. But telling people what you need to help achieve this feeling of I'm getting what I need
Right.
and I'm integrating my work into my life in a healthy way. That is a way to provide, I think, balance in a not scary walking on it's really honestly, it's really getting harmony, but we're going to call it balance so that when we think of work-life balance, we're not thinking of walking on a tightrope.
Yeah.
Do we want to take one more quick break? Because I think we need to take one more.
Yeah.
And then we can talk a little bit about how we can work on work-life harmony in our lives and why it helps. I mean, I think we've
Yeah.
kind of been talking about why it helps, but
Yeah. We can get into the details of it.
yep.
So we'll be right back, everyone.
Know what I really love to do?
Take baths, go for walks, read, drink margaritas, hike.
Yeah, not what I was referring to. We're recording a commercial right now.
I do, but I'm thinking outside the box, being adaptable.
As I was saying, what I love to do is host our live monthly workshops.
Oh, right. That's what we were talking about. Me too. They are a lot of fun to put together and host every month. And we can bring margaritas, so.
Join us for live conversation as we get a bit deeper into topics near and dear to our hearts. We go through everything from self-care to setting boundaries.
We share coaching tips, practical advice, and take questions from the audience. It's a whole lot of fun.
Sign up for our newsletter today at goboldlyinitiative.com/contact to make sure you hear about all the upcoming Go Boldly workshops.
You definitely don't want to miss out. Now, back to that show. All right. So, welcome back to the show. Right before we took a break, we were talking about how you can look at balance as if it's harmony and vice versa, I guess. Um, but now we want to sort of move forward. I know we're going to run long today. We want to move forward into how we find harmony in other ways, and then like why do we care so much about this? And I think we've talked about that quite a bit, but I want to get a little more into the weeds on it. But first, let's talk about finding work-life harmony. And I don't like that phrasing because like it's not missing and you're not searching for it. Like it's not hidden somewhere. It's more like we're creating it, right?
Yeah.
But it requires you to be a little more intentional and conscientious about your day and about your life in general, and like looking at things with the intention of creating a life of relative ease. And I don't mean ease in the sense that you're not working hard or you're not struggling or all of those things, but that you're working with yourself as opposed to against yourself. One of the biggest things you can do is to be present, right? Like be engaged, which is really, Tova, what you were just talking about, but said in a different way. And it's to be engaged in your day and to understand that while you are working, while you are parenting, while you are partnering, while you are exercising, self-caring, whatever it is that you are doing, you are still you. You are still like the person inside you has not suddenly gone away and been replaced with a work robot or a partner robot or whatever. So throughout all of those experiences, being present and acknowledging that like I'm still a human being, even though I'm maybe you're doing a job you don't enjoy and it feels like drudgery. You're still human. You're still you. You're still living and breathing during that time. And so taking breaks and being aware of who you are and what you value and where you want to go during that time is really, really important.
And I want to add, we've been talking a lot about jobs, and you kind of said parenting too, but I want to add like parenting counts as feeling like you need to be reminded that you're a human being
Oh
when
God,
you're
yeah.
doing it, right?
Maybe even more.
Yeah, exactly. Like feeling that you need to be reminded. We had a great conversation yesterday. We actually met with two women who are launching podcasts and are moms of 10 children combined
Yeah.
between the two of them.
Yeah.
So just many, many children, like a baseball team, more than a baseball team, two
Right.
basketball teams. Um, and a lot of kids. Says the people who have a basketball team between them. So that's like
Right.
still quite
Exactly.
a few children.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I think it is extra important. And I always get reminded this like on days where I've made dinner of some kind, and usually my youngest doesn't want it. And I'm just
Mm,
like so
every
stressed. And
time.
I'm just like, bro, yes. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, what am I going to feed him? He doesn't want anything. He never wants anything. Like, just eat cereal for the love of God, just eat cereal. And I'm
Just,
just like so
yeah.
stressed, and he won't eat anything. And then at some point it clicks. And I'm like, that's right. If I give him a plate with apples and cucumbers and cheese, he will be very happy. And then I give that to him, and he is very happy. And I'm just like, oh, yeah. Okay. That was easy. And I just forgot. And if I just slow down a little bit and didn't get all like, you know, worked up and wacky, like I would have remembered that maybe a little bit sooner. Like, and so it's not easy being present, but there are benefits to being present because sometimes it can stop the out of control feelings
Yeah.
of like, of like the train has left the station and it
Well,
is like going down the hill without brakes.
and it can also alert you to other things that are coming into play and impacting your reactions to whatever is around you,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, I get upset with my kid who doesn't eat anything because I feel like I'm failing, right?
Of
Like,
course. Oh,
it
yeah.
makes me feel like I'm failing because I can't feed this child. And that's absurd. I'm not failing. But if I'm not present in the moment where I'm having that same conversation you were just talking about with my son, then I'm like back in my own childhood thinking about food issues, or like I'm, thinking about somebody else's food issues or whatever it is. And I'm not acknowledging or attending to the current situation and the current feelings and whatever's happening in the moment. And what's happening in the moment is usually I've cooked a meal and I'm like, for God's sakes, I can't cook 12 different meals every night. This is so annoying. Um, and that's me. Like that's on me, not like, you know what I mean? Like you being present
Yeah.
allows you to acknowledge those feelings in a more useful way.
Well, and I think that as a person, I was going to say parent, but it's a person,
Mm,
there are usually like 18 feelings happening,
right.
right? And the one we feel at the surface, right? So I am trying to print. I still am really glad, by the way, that I send out Christmas cards. In fact, I recently, as in an hour ago, was thinking about two very good friends from college who I have only stayed in touch with thanks to the power of social media.
Hmm.
And I was thinking an hour ago, I really wish I sent them Christmas cards. How could I make that happen? And then I was like, I could send them a message on Instagram or Facebook and ask for their address. So guess what I did? I did that and they immediately responded with their address. So now I get to send them Christmas cards. It's all very exciting. But I am trying to print the labels. Now, my printer is no longer connected to whatever it needs to be connected to. It stopped one day because printers are hateful. We all know this. There have been literal movies made about this. There are
Yeah.
memes. And so the top feeling is rage.
Right.
That is valid. That is a valid feeling. But way underneath is a feeling of inadequacy because at some point when I was ordering the Christmas cards, holiday cards, they're not even Christmas cards, the holiday cards, intentionally holiday cards, by the way.
Mm,
I had the option of uploading my Excel spreadsheet and they could have put the addresses on the cards. And I chose not to do that to save money because I wanted to save money because money is tight this time of year and all year. And, health issues don't make it less tight.
right.
And I feel guilty that money is tight because I'm 42 years old and money in my head should not be tight as a 42-year-old woman. And there's all this
Yeah.
guilt about that, single parent, blah, 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 blah. And so, in addition to very valid rage towards my printer, that by the way, I'm staring at, I'm looking at you. Um, there's also this very real feeling of inadequacy about money.
Yeah.
And by the way, next year, I'm going to be a high roller, and that Excel spreadsheet is getting sent to that Christmas card company.
It's
Because
definitely getting
listen,
uploaded.
in October, I always buy a Groupon. I am a very savvy holiday card shopper, and I always get a deal.
Right.
So the extra money is getting thrown at those Christmas those addresses. But
That's
I was
hilarious.
trying to save money. And so the point of it is when I eventually got present, I was able to recognize the two big feelings. And then in the middle was this feeling of I wasted 2 hours on Tuesday sitting. Fortunately, I live in a small apartment. So I live in a normal size apartment, but an apartment nonetheless. So at least I was seeing my children as I was raging at my printer. But I
Right.
wasted 2 hours on Tuesday trying to get it reconnected. And I mean, thankfully, I teach my kids coping skills. So my oldest was like, "It's okay, mom. It's okay." I was like, "I haven't even started you guys' dinner yet because I was doing it." And he's like, "It's okay, mom. Just take some deep breaths." And I was like, well, at least I teach him good things.
Right.
But there's lots. So the point is, had I been able to be present sooner, I may have recognized that the driver was less rage at the printer and more this feeling of inadequacy.
Right. Which,
And
yeah, which is what I was es- essentially trying to say is that, like, whatever you're feeling in any given moment, the more present you are, the more
yes,
aware you're going to be of whatever's underneath those feelings, whatever um background comes into play, whatever outside influences are impacting your feelings. So that alone will help you, first of all, not react in a way that's unhealthy for you or the people around you. But second of all, also helps you create more harmony in your life. A couple other things that are, obviously benefits of seeking harmony and creating harmony in your life is improved health, right? It's going to decrease your stress eventually, if not right away. it can help, prevent illness, fatigue, and insomnia, all these things that are related to stress and anxiety. And all of that obviously is important, and we want to see you all achieving that.
Yeah.
It can also create increased productivity because, um, as much as I hate that my husband always says this to me, he's 100% right. Every time I take a break and then come back to something, I am more productive, right? Like if I remind myself I'm a human being while I'm working, I am more productive. And then it creates less burnout, right? Like
Yeah.
people think that balance is how you stop burnout, and that is a complete myth, right? Seeking balance is how we burn ourselves out because we're constantly trying to hold everything up and be great at everything all the time. And that is not humanly possible, right? Like we cannot do that. So
Yeah.
if we are seeking and creating harmony in our lives, far less likely to be burnt out because we can say, all right, well, today I have a doctor's appointment, I have to get groceries, I'm working from 3 to 10, and my kids got a concert. So like the things you have to do, and then you fit in the rest of what is in your life where it goes. I mean, that's a very busy day. I don't know. I just like overwhelmed myself with that day. Um, but it is how we work towards avoiding burnout, and making burnout far less inevitable than it seems to be.
And I just want to highlight this increased productivity concept, this taking breaks thing, just as a moment. So I think we all have, if you're like us and you're like, no, I'm gonna go, 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 go. At some point, your productivity drops off. It's
Hmm.
hard to believe, but it does. Um, Now you are welcome to do a study of yourself and dig really deep and figure out exactly where that is. Is it at 96 minutes? Is it 124 minutes? Is it at 332 minutes? I don't know. You can do a deep dive and figure that out. In all likelihood, based on studies that other people have done, it is between 90 and 120 minutes that your productivity is going to drop off without taking a break. So you can either do your own study or you can just rely on other people's studies. And what that means is, I would just rely on other people's studies in the interest of harmony in your own life,
Right.
and time. And so what that means is you need to set a reminder between 90 minutes and 2 hours to take a break. The break could be, and it could be something else. It could be like, this is a great time to change the laundry around if you're at home.
Hmm.
It could be, this is a great time to go print something. And when I print something, I'm going to do a lap around the office before I go pick up the stuff from the printer.
Right.
It could be a variety of things. And I'm going to fill up my coffee. I'm going to go to the bathroom. And then I'm going to just, when I get back to my office, I'm going to do like a wall sit for a minute or something. Like it can be a variety of things. It doesn't actually have to be a long break. You can figure out that's something that you need to do for yourself. Does it need to be a 5 minute break? Does it need to be a 15-minute break? Like
Yeah.
you figure out what it needs to be.
And it
Um,
doesn't have to be the same every time.
right, right. What does it need to look like? Does it need to get your heart rate up? Like, do you need to like pump your arms a little bit?
Right.
Um,
Like in the morning, I don't need to get my heart rate up. But in the
right,
afternoon, if I want to stay
100%.
awake, I have to get my heart rate up.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. Like throughout the day, it's going to change, and it's going to
Right.
depend on you and your personality.
Yeah, I know at the very least I always need to stand up and drink water. Like
Yeah.
those two things always need to be part of my break, but otherwise, what does need to be included? And so you figure it out, but like once again, you can do it for yourself, but that's also a great way for harmony to happen, right? Because another break could be like I like to do working from home. I can do personal tasks standing up.
Hmm.
So I can take a step away from work and then I can move my planner into the kitchen and be standing up at the kitchen counter and make a phone call or two for
Right.
home. And now my brain is not thinking about work. I'm stepping away from all of that over there. I'm standing up. Maybe I'm doing some squats. I'm moving my body. I'm drinking some water. I'm calling the dentist. And then I can go back, right? And it's giving me a little balance. It's resetting. So it looks different for everybody. I don't do that every time. And I don't need to call the dentist. I need to call them a lot, actually, but not quite that much. Um, but it's a way for you to actually figure out a way to harmonize a little bit in your life as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is
Uh,
really important,
it
even if you're
is.
like, no, no, I'm just going to keep going.
Right, you
It's
can't power through forever. It
nope.
just isn't functionally possible. And as you said, your productivity and the quality of whatever you're doing will decrease exponentially at some point. So we do need to wrap up. But just a quick, I know I could talk about this forever. Tova, your face was like, no. I could talk about this for a long time. And I am very passionate about this concept because I think I'm personally offended by everyone trying to find balance in their lives and like
Yeah,
pushing that narrative because it's unhealthy and it hurts people
it's harmful. Yeah.
and it creates like unnecessary competition. It creates things where people feel like they're failing and none of that's real. It's just this made up social construct. So I highly recommend doing more research on how to find harmony in your own life, and that research might just be like paying attention to your day, like actually like being, and I keep saying this, but being present in your day and being aware of what's happening. Like what's happened since you woke up today? What's happened, what's going to happen between now and when you go to bed? What does that look like and feel like for you? And what do you want it to look like and feel like? And shape your day around that instead of, trying to keep everybody happy. Because that just doesn't work out. Um, so I don't know, Tova, if we have homework for this week. Um,
So, um, I did not think about it,
yeah,
but
that's fine.
I think what we need to do, it's a hard week to even think about this, to be perfectly honest,
Hmm.
because I don't really know that I um want to ask people to think about this week. There's so much going on, but I do want to ask people to think about this week because no one gets off without homework, even this week. Um, so what I would love everyone to do is think about, I'm not going to ask anyone to achieve harmony this week,
What?
but what? Um, unless it's with your baking. And then, that's really necessary because it's like a science experiment in there, and you really need to balance out the baking soda, baking powder, all that good stuff,
Right.
or your cookies will not turn out. But I would like you to think about, are you trying to achieve something that is not achievable? Are you trying to achieve work-life balance or life-life balance? Are you trying to achieve something that the culture, our world, our society has told you you should be achieving that you've never been able to achieve, and you constantly feel like you are Charlie Brown in the football?
Mm,
Um, because if you are and you feel that way, I want you to think about what would happen if you stopped trying to achieve it.
mm.
It sounds very scary, um, but it could also be uh, kind of freeing,
Liberating.
liberating,
I'll say
and
it.
yeah, liberating. And then maybe put a pin in the concept of harmony. But when I started thinking about the balance being someone on a tightrope or holding the plates in the air, I could not unsee it.
Yeah.
I could never go back to it. And when I started thinking of harmony as, because I love music, an orchestra piece, and
Hmm.
how it's different at any given moment, not even just the day, any moment it's different.
And depending on who's playing it,
And
like,
who's depending on who's playing it. It's different for me and it's different for Riley and it's different for me from moment to moment. And it's different for, and what I wake up in the morning and think it will sound like and what it actually ends up sounding like. And I've had those moments when I've been in an orchestra and you're like, oh my God, it's better than I ever thought it was going to be, but it's different than I thought it was going to sound,
right,
right? Like you've had that day, right? Where you're like, this day is better than I thought it was going to be, but it's different than I thought it was going to be.
right.
So harmony gives you space for that. Balancing just gives you space to not fall. And so I just want you to think about this week because I don't want to put too much on your plate. So I'm actually just going to ask you to take something off. So think about letting go of trying to achieve work-life balance or any type of balance, frankly,
Yeah.
unless
Yeah.
you're a gymnast and then keep going for it. That's great. Good luck.
Um,
Let
yeah.
go. Let go of it. We just did a workshop on decluttering December, a lot about with letting go. A lot of the beginning of our year of you crew, which that can be some homework. Check out that. We would love to have you join us.
Yes.
And we will talk a lot about balance and harmony in that group as we're setting up goals and talking about our goals for the year.
Right.
But a lot of that is about letting go and letting go of things that don't serve us. Trying to achieve some sort of balance does not serve us. So this week, think about, are you trying to achieve a balance that isn't serving you? Let go of it.
And think about it as in, do you even want it? Is it something you even want, right? Like sometimes we just keep going and we aren't paying attention to whether or not we actually want to get to the place we're trying to get to. So keep that in mind and think about that for the week. We have another interview next week. It's our last interview of the season, and we're very excited about it for you guys. And then we are going to wrap up this season before the end of the year. Not surprisingly, talking about letting go. So until next week, everyone, think about harmony. Think about what that might look like for you. And we will talk to you all very soon.
Thanks so much for listening to We Go Boldly podcast. We know you're busy and we love spending time with you.
If you enjoyed this week's episode, let us know. Head to Apple Podcasts right now to rate and review our show. While you're there, be sure to click that subscribe button.
Want more us time? Follow us on all the socials at Go Boldly Together.
Want even more us time? As in all the coaching pizzazz. Find us at goboldlyinitiative.com for all the info.
We will be back with more excitement, research, and deep thoughts next week.
Until then, keep on being the bold, brave, amazing people we know you already are.